Hi everyone. So today I'm going to do a video on under eye concealer. So I know it's one that I've done before, but I do get asked a bit to show it again, and I thought today would be a good opportunity because my eyes, as you can see, are quite dark naturally. I'm not even tired at the moment, and this is how they look. So I wanted to show you how the under eye concealer works and why I suppose ours is different, because I do get that question asked a lot as well. So more often than not, I tend to go for our medium shade because I do wear tan. At the moment I have the Tan Organic Mousse on. It's just a light layer, but I do like to have a little bit of colour throughout the year because I can go very, very pale when I don't have any tan on. But when I have no tan at all on, I will use our light concealer. I also sometimes use the light when I am tanned as an add-on to the medium to give myself, say, a little bit of a higher lift on the cheek, or if I'm doing more of a glam look that I want a bit of difference, you know, and a bit more sculpt to my face. But on a day-to-day basis, it's usually the medium because for me, it's the more natural finish. Now, it all depends on your skin tone. So if, like me, you are this kind of colouring throughout the year naturally or with tan, then the medium's going to suit you better if you like a more natural finish. Some people prefer a difference. So some people prefer to see a little bit of light underneath here and that kind of obvious lift. I prefer just to have the colour neutralised and a slight lift rather than something that's too obvious. I don't know if I've said that word too many times now, but you know how I am. It's subtle for me is always the key. So that's why I tend to always stick with the medium. Now with our concealer as well, it is a self-setting concealer. So that means you don't need to put powder on with it. I think that this is a real good key because a lot of the time powder can undo the good work that you've just done and can sit into any lines or wrinkles around the eye and just make you look a bit more tired, and they can make the concealer look like it's caked under the eye and it just makes everything look worse. So the less powder that we can use, the better. And that goes for foundation as well, over foundation if you don't need it. And then the other big difference for me is I will always start, see here where my dark circle finishes, I'll start here with my concealer. I'll bring it to a little point underneath my pupil and then bring it out along the cheekbone. So basically all of the product is going here, and then I'm going to blend it up so that by the time I get underneath my lower lash line, there's going to be so little product there that there's no chance of it creasing or caking. This is especially good if you have a lot of lines or wrinkles around the eye that you're conscious of and that you don't want product sitting into. Our concealer as well also is a very high coverage, so a little goes a long way. If you have any sort of creasing or caking, it's 99.9% chance that it's down to over application. And so I kind of always say to people, it's a stupid small amount, you know, like it's much less than you would even think that you'd need is what you're going to go with. And remember that it's much easier to build it up than it is to take it down. So I never ever put foundation around this eye area at all because your skin around the eye is much thinner and much more delicate than the rest of the face. So it absorbs everything that's put onto it. So if you can imagine, if say you have a dehydrated eye, because as we get older, this area does get even more dehydrated. It's going to have a foundation on it that's going to set, because foundation consistency is different than under eye consistency. Then you're going to have a concealer and then a powder. So that's 3 products on an area that really only should have one, because it's going to just grab and absorb everything there and it's going to look dry and it's going to cake. It's just one of those things. I think people kind of are like, why would I not put it on the eye? You know, foundation's going to cover that area. But if you can imagine, most people these days are wearing foundations that are setting foundation. So they're there for the day. They're not going to move and they're not going to budge. So you don't want that underneath the eye where it's going to dry into that area, because it will just basically set and sit and accentuate all the little lines and wrinkles that are around the area. So try and keep it completely clear of any product. Like you can see that I have no foundation at all around this whole area. It's all kept for concealer. Another question I get asked a lot is, do you wear foundation before or after concealer? That's totally down to a personal preference. I tend to put my foundation on first and then go in with my concealer. If I was doing, say, a really heavy smoky eye or a really dark eye that I might have a chance of fall down, I might do my concealer first and then do my foundation. But it's totally to your own preference. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong with that. So with our concealer, when you have your concealer, the first use, you will have to twist the bottom a good few times to get the product up, because it's a sponge top applicator. So the product comes up and goes into the sponge. Once you see it come through onto the sponge, I know this is the one I use every day, so you can see a lot of it there. Once you see it come up onto the sponge, stop. and use that product first. And from then on, a half a twist to a twist at most a day is enough, because what happens is if you twist it once or twice and you've too much product come up that you're not using, what'll happen is it'll start to seep out of the sponge and you're going to waste product doing that. And then you might just have like a little bit of a messy concealer bottle. So we only need a little bit of a half twist. It'll then also help to not put on too much, so not to over apply. And then what I do is I take it down onto my skin and up onto the cheekbone. So you can see how close to my own skin coloring that this concealer is. Again, remember that it's not a one size fits all. If you prefer a more of a lift, you can go with the lighter one. And then onto my lid as well, remembering the inner corner because that area tends to get really dark. But at this point, I have no product up along here. I'm going to blend up to that area. And then I tend to always use my concealer brush for doing my concealer because I just love this brush. But today I'm going to use our mini buffer because a lot of people have asked me, can you use this brush? And you totally can. It's the perfect size for under here as well. So just like your foundation, you're going to tap the product into the skin and blend it up to underneath the lash line. So I'm tapping it again, not rubbing. We never rub because we don't want to pull and drag at that skin. Because if you were to do that every day over time, you will damage the skin around the eye. We don't want that to happen. So just pushing it in. When you push it in like this, it becomes like your own skin as well. So it creates a much more natural finish. But look at the way it just takes the color away and we've got a nice lift. Now I've always got redness on the inside of my eye as well. So for that, I don't put concealer in there. I'm going to use a concealer pencil. This is the Max Factor nude pencil. So we'll just put a little bit of that in there. I'm going to put it on this side as well because I'm actually going to use the light on this side to show you the difference. Okay, but like look at that. For me now, that's perfect because it's got a natural finish on it and I can't see any dark circles or shadows around my eye, but I also can't see that I have product on either. And you know, again, for me, that's key. That's what I want. So with the light concealer then, we're going to use a small bit just out here. Now the reason I'm doing little taps like that rather than the full on is because obviously it's so much lighter than my skin tone. I don't want it to be too obvious, but if you are paler than me, you can do like I did on this side. And then go in with our mini buffer again and just tap it in, starting low down and then working our way up to underneath the lash line. So with this, you'll see that we'll get more of a lift to the area. It'll just be a brighter finish. They say the rule of thumb is half a shade to a shade lighter than your foundation. I wouldn't go any further than that because that's when, you know, in photographs, sometimes you see people and there's like this really obvious light triangle and lightness around their eye. That's because the concealer is too light. We see on this one now how it's lifted up my cheekbone more. It's given me a lift. It's taken away all the discoloration around my eye as well. But all of a sudden now, this side of my face looks higher than the other. So there's where your difference is. If you're going that little bit lighter to where you're going for a more natural finish, it's going to give the face a lift. So it's all down to personal preference. So whatever you're wanting to do and whatever you're trying to achieve with your concealer, that's how you're going to choose which one you're going to go with. So I hope that was helpful and that, oh yeah, by the way as well, so that's it. We let it set and do its own thing. You don't need to put any powder over it. You just let it stay like that. It doesn't need anything else. So you can work away with the rest of your makeup now. But I hope that was helpful. If you're unsure of the shade to go with, email us at, I was going to say, I can't remember what our email address is. It's hello@ayu.ie, or you can go to our website and press the Ask Susie button and I'll be able to tell you. As long as you tell me the shade and the brand of the current foundation that you're using, then I'll be able to give you a gauge on what concealer to go with. But I do hope that this was helpful and it will show you that it is easier than you think. And if you've never used concealer before, that you might try it because it will really make a difference and it'll pull back the amount of product that you have on your face and give you a really nice fresh finish. But I think you can totally see the difference there with one side of the face sitting higher than the other and just down to the colouring, but yet it looks really natural. So I hope you enjoyed that and I will chat to you soon.